You know, when you actually sit down and really think about personal growth and specifically like spiritual growth, most of us are walking around with this secret expectation of, oh, really high-end production value.
Oh, absolutely. Like a movie.
Right.
Wow.
We think it's supposed to feel like you're the main character in this massive, epic video game. You know, you finish a really difficult quest, you make a hard moral choice, and suddenly you expect this blinding beam of light to shoot down from the heavens.
Yeah, you want the dramatic sound effect.
Exactly, a chorus of angels and this cosmic announcement echoing across the sky saying, "Congratulations, you have leveled up."
It's a very appealing fantasy. I mean, we really crave that definitive binary shift from being, not enlightened to suddenly enlightened.
It's comforting, right?
Deeply comforting.
It feels good to the human brain to think there might be this flashy, undeniable finish line where you suddenly have it all figured out and you never struggle again. Yeah, but then you look at the source material we're jumping into today, and you realize pretty quickly that the universe's production budget for our personal spiritual growth is basically zero.
Barely a shoestring budget.
Right. So today, we are taking a deep dive into this really fascinating set of notes and insights. It's titled 5 Pillars of Spiritual Growth and Practice.
And it's incredibly practical.
It really is. And the mission for our deep dive today is to completely demystify this idea of spiritual progression for you. We want to get past all that abstract, pie-in-the-sky rhetoric and actually look at the practical, actionable mechanisms for how growth actually happens.
Yeah, and what stands out immediately in these notes is the author's core thesis, which is, instead of massive spontaneous miracles, true spiritual growth shares distinct commonalities across many different people's lived experiences.
Like predictable patterns.
Exactly, and those commonalities are almost entirely rooted in very small, seemingly mundane daily actions. It's the invisible accumulation of choices rather than a single lightning strike of enlightenment.
And what I found so compelling is that the author doesn't just offer this high-level philosophy. They give us specific micro-practices.
Like spiritual training exercises.
Yeah, exercises that you can literally start testing out today.
So let's get right into the first major concept here, which is all about what the author calls the wavelength of action.
Right, the absolute necessity of following initial promptings immediately.
So the source material points to a prominent religious leader, President Monson, as a prime example of this mechanism in action.
Yeah, he was widely known in his community for serving as a literal answer to other people's prayers.
But the notes highlight that the underlying method for how he achieved this wasn't some, mystical, untouchable superpower.
No, it was actually brilliantly simple. He just acted instantly on spiritual nudges.
Instantly?
Yeah, he didn't sit around overcomplicating the thought. When the impulse came to help someone or, reach out, he just moved.
Okay, I got to stop you there because this is where the friction happens for most of us.
Oh, for sure. There is this universal human reflex that I like to call the butt reflex. You get a thought popping into your head like, hey, I should reach out to that friend I haven't spoken to in a while.
And immediately the rational brain kicks in.
Instantly, it says, but it's almost bedtime. Or, but it's been so long, it's going to be really awkward to text them out of nowhere.
It feels exactly like hitting the snooze button on an alarm clock.
Yes, that is exactly what it is.
And that is exactly the danger.
Yeah.
The author actually validates how incredibly hard that internal snooze button is to resist.
Because it's so easy to just delay it.
Right. But if we look at the psychology and the spiritual mechanics of what's happening in that split second, hitting that snooze button does a lot more than just delay a good deed.
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, the immediacy of the action is the entire point.
Really? The speed matters more than just the fact that you eventually did the nice thing later.
According to this framework, yes. Because it's not just about checking off a social obligation box.
Yeah.
The author explains that acting instantly is how you tune yourself to a divine wavelength.
Tune yourself. Like a radio.
Exactly. Think of an old analog radio dial. When you get that initial prompting, the signal from God or your highest conscience is completely clear.
Okay, I'm following.
But the longer you wait, the more your brain's default mode network takes over. The static of your own doubts, your desire for convenience, all your logical rationalizations, they just drown out the signal.
Oh, wow. So by acting immediately, you are actively training your internal receiver to stay locked onto that frequency.
Precisely. You are basically trying to outrun your own brain's tendency to talk you out of doing good.
You're building the muscle memory of obedience before the rationalization can even boot up.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the first practical training exercise from the notes. It's essentially a 5-second rule for promptings.
I love this one.
Yeah, the moment a nudge hits you to text someone, help a neighbor, offer a compliment, you force yourself to start moving within 5 seconds.
You literally don't give the butt reflex time to form a sentence.
Right. And the source pairs that 5-second rule with a really interesting reflection practice.
The journal, right.
Yeah, they suggest keeping an initial prompting journal. Just once a week, you sit down and record the outcomes of those immediate actions.
So why write it down, though? Why is that part so important?
The mechanism behind writing it down is crucial because it provides physical proof to your brain that the tuning process is working.
Like pattern recognition.
Exactly. You start to see the patterns and you realize, oh, when I listen to that impulse, positive things happen. It cements the daily habit.
And as you start looking at those patterns in your journal, a really fascinating realization emerges, which the author points out.
What's that?
If you are actually following these immediate promptings, you quickly notice that they almost never point inward.
Yes.
They almost always direct your attention towards someone else, which is a perfect segue into the next major concept the author tackles.
The battle against our own self-absorption.
Yes. Pillar 2, the intentional shifting of your focus away from yourself and toward others.
And the notes, they don't shy away from how significant a challenge this is.
No, they don't.
Because biologically, psychologically, we are heavily wired for self-preservation.
Oh, absolutely. And the author makes this incredibly relatable, self-deprecating confession that I just resonated with so deeply.
The part about being hungry.
Yes. They point out that the human default mode is to focus 100% on our own personal problems, our own comfort, our own stress, and they specifically note that this is especially true when you are hungry.
It's so true.
I mean, let's be honest. When I am hangry, my spiritual wavelength is completely offline. The entire universe shrinks to the exact size of my empty stomach.
It's funny, but it really points to a profound truth about human nature.
It does.
When we are uncomfortable, whether it's physical hunger, emotional pain, or just daily stress, our vision naturally narrows. It becomes very myopic.
Everything is about me.
Right. But the notes contrast this default biological setting with the example of a woman named Sister Chambers.
Oh, right. Tell us about her.
She was a regular member of her local congregation who was known for showing immense, deep compassion and love for others.
Always looking outward.
Constantly looking outward, despite whatever friction might have been happening in her own life.
And the author makes a point to explain that this isn't just about being a nice person, right? Like there's a deeper mechanism at play here.
Exactly. The author analyzes why service works on a spiritual level. It's not merely a nice social gesture.
So what is it?
The notes describe this outward focus as a direct route to the Savior.
A direct route.
Yeah. And if you think about the why behind that divinity is fundamentally rooted in outward creation, care, and compassion.
Okay.
So when you actively override your biological amygdala response to obsess over your own survival or your own problem.
When you ignore the hangry feeling.
Right. And you consciously choose to extend compassion instead, you are literally mimicking the psychological posture of God. You're stepping out of your own ego.
Okay, but how do we realistically train for that? Because just telling a stressed, hangry person, hey, stop thinking about yourself and go serve someone, is a recipe for disaster.
Oh, complete disaster. It requires a proactive shift rather than a reactive one.
So what's the practice for this pillar?
The daily training suggested here is a simple morning prayer to determine a target of service for your day.
And what I found brilliant about this practice is the flexibility built into it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfectly clear right away.
Exactly. The source explicitly notes that even if a specific name or face doesn't magically pop into your mind during that prayer, the exercise still works.
How so?
Just the mere act of verbalizing to God, I'm ready to help someone today, actively turns your heart outward before the chaos of the day even begins.
You're priming your reticular activating system.
Your what?
Your reticular activating system is the part of your brain that notices things. You're priming it to look for opportunities to be useful rather than looking for things to be annoyed by.
I am ready to be useful. I love that. It changes your whole stance.
It really does.
But let's pause here, because while focusing outward on others is a beautiful practice, and it definitely gets us out of our own heads.
There's always a catch.
There is. We still have to deal with our own messy internal roadblocks. We all have moments of deep confusion and uncertainty about our faith or our path.
Doubt.
Yes, doubt. And The way the author addresses this is probably the most surprising part of the entire source material, Pillar 3.
Yeah, it addresses the fearless, relentless pursuit of truth despite having questions or doubts.
So let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Because in a lot of communities, having doubts or constantly questioning things is traditionally viewed as a major red flag.
Oh, definitely.
Isn't questioning often seen as a sign of weak faith? Like, the assumption is that if you're truly spiritually grounded, you shouldn't have doubts. You should just know and be totally at peace.
Yeah, it is a very prevalent cultural assumption. But you're right, the author completely reframes this.
How do they reframe it?
Questioning is absolutely not a sign of weakness. In fact, these notes argue that questioning is the literal gateway to personal revelation.
The gateway. That is such a flip.
It is. But the logic is straightforward. If you never ask a question, you have closed the avenue to receive an answer.
Right. You can't pour water into a cup that already believes it's full.
Exactly. The vulnerability of admitting you don't know something is the actual mechanism for growth.
And the source gives two incredibly powerful real-world examples of this, don't they?
Yes, they do. The first is an engineer who found himself utterly overwhelmed with profound questions about his faith.
So what did he do? Did he just try to ignore it?
No, instead of burying those questions as shame, he leaned into the friction. The notes describe him falling to his knees in the middle of the night, alone, to explicitly ask if God was truly there.
Oh, wow. So he used the doubt to prompt the prayer.
Exactly. And the second example is a woman who spent years, literally years, searching for truth through her tears.
Years of doubting and asking.
Right. And the author is highlighting a specific posture here, continually asking, God, what is happening here? What is the truth?
And that doesn't push God away.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It does not distance you from the divine. It actually deepens your growth because it requires active, desperate, authentic engagement rather than just passive complacency.
That is such a liberating concept. It means we have to stop being terrified of our own questions.
We really do.
So the training practice suggested here, this is great, is to start treating your questions as faith material.
Faith material.
Yeah. Instead of feeling guilty about a doubt and trying to bury it in the backyard of your mind where it just festers, you pull it out into the light.
You physically write it down.
You write it down. Why is the writing so critical here, too?
Well, because writing it down objectifies the doubt. It takes it out of the nebulous emotional realm of your anxiety and turns it into a concrete object you can actually examine.
It becomes raw material.
Exactly.
And then you put it through what the author calls an exploration cycle.
Right. Cycling through the process.
You cycle through reading, pondering, and praying over that specific written question continuously. You are essentially using the friction of the doubt as the fuel for your spiritual engine.
But this brings up a very practical problem.
Okay, what is it?
How do we sustain the energy for this kind of rigorous internal search?
Oh, I see. Because it sounds exhausting.
It is. Wrestling with doubt, actively trying to override your biology to serve others, constantly trying to tune your spiritual radio, it drains you.
The internal search for truth can sometimes feel incredibly isolating, too.
Exactly. So to maintain the stamina for this, the author argues you have to plug into an external power source.
Which moves us beautifully into the next major concept, Pillar 4, deeply honoring formal covenants and what the notes refer to as priesthood power.
Essentially, the formal sacred channels designed to connect people to God.
Right, and the primary example used here is the sacrament, the weekly communal ritual of partaking in bread and water.
A very common practice.
Yeah, but when we talk about weekly rituals like this, there is a massive trap that I think almost everyone falls into. I call it the automatic sacrament.
Oh, the tendency to just go through the motions.
Exactly. You sit in the pew, you take the piece of bread, you drink the little cup of water, and you are done.
Zero mental engagement.
No, absolutely zero. It's just muscle memory. It is exactly like when your smartphone pops up with a software update notification, and you just mindlessly click update later to get it off your screen.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Or worse, you let it run the update while you stare blankly at the loading bar. You don't read the release notes. You have no idea what bugs the update is supposedly fixing.
Right, you're just waiting for it to be over.
And then later in the week you wonder, wait, did I even get my weekly spiritual software update? Why is my operating system still glitching?
That captures the problem perfectly. Rituals can so easily devolve into empty routines.
So how does the author address this?
Well, the source material contrasts this passive autopilot mode with the profound experience of a church member named Brother Massimo.
What happened with him?
During this weekly ordinance, he didn't just sit there passively. He felt a tangible physical power flow into him.
Tangible power, not just a nice feeling.
Right. And the insight the author is driving at is that these formal ordinances are not mere forms. They aren't empty traditions that we perform just to show attendance.
They are actual sacred channels.
Yes.
But the catch is, a channel only works if you actually tune your receiver into it.
Going back to the radio analogy.
Exactly.
The physical acts, eating the bread, drinking the water, are designed as tangible anchors for an intangible process. They're meant to be a deliberate psychological and spiritual offloading of your burdens onto Christ.
So how do we fix the automatic sacrament problem? How do we actively tune in?
The training exercise suggested for this is incredibly practical.
Let's hear it.
Before the ritual even begins, maybe before you even leave your house for the service, you sit down with a piece of paper.
More writing.
More writing, and you write out exactly what burdens, what specific fears, or what persistent issues you want to entrust to the Savior that week.
Oh, I love that. You are quantifying your need.
Yes. You're looking at the release notes of your own life and identifying exactly what bugs need fixing.
You make the abstract burden concrete.
Exactly.
And then, during the actual ordinance, as you physically take the bread and water, you mentally and intentionally hand those specific written items over to him.
It's a conscious exchange.
You are actively exchanging your documented burdens for his strength. It completely transforms a routine, boring Sunday habit into a highly active, sacred time of renewal.
It changes your entire posture from passive reception to active collaboration with the divine.
Okay, so looking at all these tools, we've got the 5-second rule for acting on promptings, the morning prayer to find a service target, treating your doubts as raw faith material, and writing down your burdens to hand over during a ritual.
It's quite a toolkit.
They are incredibly empowering tools.
Yeah.
But, and you knew there was a but coming.
There always is.
Even when you are utilizing all of these tools diligently, progress can still feel painfully, agonizingly slow.
It really can.
You don't suddenly fix all your character flaws in a week just because you wrote them down.
No, you don't. Which is exactly why the author concludes with the final, deeply grounding reality. The fifth pillar.
The marathon of weakness.
Yes. The patient, grueling effort required to overcome our inherent weaknesses and fears. The core truth here is that spiritual growth is born of continuous, compounding effort over a long period of time.
Right, going all the way back to our very first point today. There are no video game light beams, no instant level up notifications.
Precisely. And to ground this reality, the note shared two very poignant stories of real struggle.
The first one is about the child, right?
Yeah, a child who was absolutely terrified of playing the piano. This fear wasn't solved overnight with a magical blessing or a single pep talk.
How is it solved?
The anxiety was dismantled slowly, piece by piece, through relentless, uncomfortable practice, continuous prayer, and steady parental encouragement.
It's the reality of the grind.
It is.
And there was a second story too, right? The young man.
A young man with a severe stutter who pushed through his immense social anxieties and communication struggles to fulfill his mission.
And again, no magic cure.
No instantaneous cure that suddenly made speaking easy for him. The author makes that very clear. The profound takeaway is that daily compounding effort is what creates genuine change.
Spiritual growth really is a marathon of weakness.
It's about learning how to walk alongside your own flaws while you diligently work on them, rather than expecting them to vanish the moment you ask.
That reframing is so validating, honestly. It gives you permission to be an active work in progress without feeling like a failure.
Exactly.
And the final training exercise the author provides to help us endure this marathon, this might actually be my favorite one.
The bracelet method.
Yes, the bracelet method.
It's essentially a classic cognitive behavioral therapy technique, but applied specifically to spiritual resilience.
So the practice is simple. You wear a physical bracelet on your wrist, like a rubber band or something similar.
Something you can snap.
Exactly. And the exact moment a negative thought pops into your head, you know, that familiar, insidious voice that says, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough, or God isn't listening.
The voice we all hear.
Right. When you hear it, you physically pull back that bracelet and snap it against your wrist.
Ouch. But let's look at the mechanism of why that works.
Yeah, why the pain?
The physical sensation, that tiny sting of the snap, serves as an immediate neurological interrupt.
Okay, an interrupt.
Yeah, when you are spiraling in anxiety or self-doubt, your brain is running a well-worn neurological loop.
Like a record skipping.
Right. The physical snap breaks that loop. It jars your brain out of its rut just long enough for you to consciously insert a new intentional thought.
You use the physical sting to halt the momentum of the despair.
Exactly. And then, crucially, you force yourself to reframe the thought out loud or very clearly in your mind.
So instead of letting "I can't do this" echo in your head, you snap the bracelet and deliberately say, "I can do this with practice."
Or, I am walking with the Lord and He is helping me. You are actively, aggressively training your brain to reject despair.
You are taking dominion over your own internal narrative.
You really are. And honestly, this bracelet method is the perfect micro-practice to embody the entire philosophy of these notes.
How so?
It relies on small, intentional, immediate actions that, when compounded over time, create a massive shift in your spiritual reality.
Wow. So let's look back at the roadmap we've covered today. We started by completely busting the myth of the spiritual level up.
No cosmic announcements.
Right. True spiritual growth isn't a single blinding flash of light. It's the gritty daily work.
It's forcing yourself to move within 5 seconds when you feel a nudge to do good.
It's waking up and consciously praying to be useful to someone else so you don't drown in your own problems.
It is having the courage to write down your deepest doubts and treat them as raw material for building faith.
It's quantifying your heavy burdens and actively handing them over during sacred rituals.
And it's physically snapping a bracelet against your wrist to fight back against your own neurological loops of fear.
It's a lot of action. And if there is one vital takeaway from analyzing all of these mechanisms, it is that every single one of these deliberate actions actively draws you closer to the divine.
Because you are not meant to execute these practices in a vacuum. As you walk this path, utilizing these daily tools, the Savior is actively collaborating with you.
The consistent effort is your responsibility.
But the actual transformation of your character is a joint venture.
It really is a joint venture. You put in the small efforts, and the divine handles the heavy lifting of the transformation.
Beautifully said.
And that leaves us with a final, lingering thought for you to ponder long after this deep dive ends.
A question to take with you.
Exactly. If spiritual growth is truly just the invisible accumulation of these tiny, everyday choices and micro-practices, rather than massive, unmistakable miracles, how many times have you already leveled up in your life without even realizing it?